In our headlines on this Wednesday, June 25th, here in South Korea, the fragile truce between Israel and Iran is in place after a sharp rebuke from the U.S. leader in response to allegations of violations. Meanwhile, today, June 25th, South Korea marks 75 years since the start of the war here on the Korean peninsula that lasted for 3 years. And the confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Kim Jonguns opens for a second day on this Wednesday, with lawmakers poles apart. We start with a stern warning from U.S. President Donald Trump directed at Israel and Iran amid allegations of violations of the ceasefire he had earlier declared. Our Shin Ha-young starts us off.
The 12-day war between Israel and Iran ended on Wednesday following the end of a 24-hour phased ceasefire announced by U.S. President Donald Trump, though both sides traded minor attacks during the truce. President Trump gave a strong warning to both Israel and Iran, accusing them of violating the ceasefire. According to the Associated Press, Trump on Tuesday expressed frustration with Israel for retaliating against Iran and called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, urging him to stop the attacks.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel.
Trump also emphasized that he does not want to see regime change in Iran, which he said would lead to chaos.
No, I don't want it. I'd like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible. Regime change takes chaos, and ideally we don't want to see so much chaos.
This comes as tensions flared again just hours after the ceasefire between Israel and Iran took effect on Tuesday. Israel accused Iran of violating the ceasefire with missile launches, while Iran denied the claims. Israel and Iran both claimed victory in the recent conflict. Israel said it had removed two major threats, Iran's nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles.
Dear citizens of Israel, during the 12 days of the Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory, and this victory will stand for generations.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said on social media that Israel will respect the ceasefire as long as the other side does. The military chief of staff Eyal Zamir said that Israel's military is shifting its focus back to Gaza. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said Tehran would only hit Israel if it violates the ceasefire deal. He also expressed his country's readiness to resolve disputes with the U.S. within an international framework. Meanwhile, Trump's Special Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff said the U.S. and Iran are engaged in both direct talks and discussions through intermediaries about returning to negotiations on Iran's nuclear program following Israeli and U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. In an interview with Fox News, Witkoff added that the conversations are promising. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The Trump administration remains committed to complete denuclearization of North Korea. The remark was made by U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce on Tuesday during a press briefing when asked about the lesson for North Korea to be learned from the Pentagon strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities this past weekend. She also claimed that if dialogue fails with North Korea, her department was open to speculating different scenarios. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, leaders of NATO, including U.S. President Donald Trump, are gathered for their annual security talks there this week, amid concerns raised by a recent remark by Mr. Trump regarding his commitment to the alliance's mutual defense clause. Our Lee Jae explains.
U.S. President Donald Trump arrived at The Hague on Tuesday and began his official activities for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization Summit. Leaders and officials from 32 countries, including President Trump, are scheduled to hold a plenary session of the North Atlantic Council on Wednesday local time, with a press conference scheduled for later that afternoon. The joint statement of this year's summit is expected to include an agreement that all member countries will eventually spend 5% of their GDP on defense, something the U.S. leader has been pushing for. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said on Tuesday that he has no doubt that the U.S. is committed to NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Clause. The comment came as Trump raised renewed doubts about his willingness to protect U.S. allies. When asked by a reporter on his way to The Hague whether he's still committed to Article 5, which states that an armed attack against one or more of its members would be considered an attack against all NATO member states, he gave a rather ambiguous answer.
It depends on your definition. There's numerous definitions of Article 5, you know that, right? But I'm committed to being their friends. You know, I've become friends with many of those leaders, and I'm committed to helping them.
Trump has, however, decided not to attend a special meeting with the Indo-Pacific 4 or IP4 countries, including South Korea. According to NATO officials, the U.S.-NATO IP4 meeting scheduled for Wednesday has been changed to a NATO IP4 format. One official said Trump's non-participation was due to scheduling issues. Meanwhile, with a major focus on NATO's defense spending this year, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has pledged to meet the target of 5% of the UK's GDP by 2035. All NATO member countries are also expected to agree to spending 3.5% on core defense issues and the remaining 1.5% on other defense-related areas, such as resilience and security. Lee Jae, Arirang News.
Here on the local front, President Lee Jae Myung believes the most solid form of security was possible by making peace. Now, remarks to this end were shared on his social media platform to mark a solemn anniversary today, that is June 25th, which is the day that war broke out on the Korean Peninsula. While honoring the selfless sacrifices of all those involved, he also pledged better compensation for the country's war veterans in light of their extraordinary services. Adding that security is key for the economy, the president also made note of South Korea's rise from ruins to becoming economic powerhouse. Now, as I just mentioned, 75 years ago today, the Korean Peninsula broke out into war. And in light of this solemn occasion, our defense correspondent Kim Jonguns met up with a photographer who has spent over a decade taking pictures of Korean War veterans to better share their stories.
An American war veteran with a Korean flag next to him. He is a veteran of the Korean War, one of 1,950,000 soldiers from 22 countries who fought for freedom on the Korean Peninsula. Some call it the forgotten war, but with the belief that the war and veterans' memories should not fade away, photographer Rami has been documenting Korean War veterans under an initiative named Project Soldier. Since it started in 2013, Rami has met more than 2,500 Korean War veterans recording their stories.
지금까지 2,500여 명의 참전 용사분들이 인터뷰하셨는데 특히 인상 깊었던 인터뷰가 있었나요?
All the interviews were meaningful, but Colonel William Weber stood out. When veterans see their photos that make them feel like real heroes, they often tear up and ask about the price of the frame. I usually say, I'm just repaying a small debt. But Colonel Weber told me I was wrong, that as a professional soldier, he simply did his duty, and Koreans owe them nothing.
Photographer Rami's journey to document the veterans is not just to leave their stories behind. It is to let people know the value of freedom, and that freedom is not free. Sometimes military items were used in the photos to show that.
The helmet is more than just equipment. It has a symbolic meaning of protecting peace and freedom. Each veteran wrote their name, military unit, and service time on the helmet before taking the photo, showing the lasting symbol of the freedom they helped defend.
For freedom to truly endure, the sacrifices of veterans must be remembered, a message that resonates even with soldiers currently serving in Korea. Humbled, one said he was moved by how the photos captured the deep sincerity of senior veterans' commitment to freedom.
Even for me, who's currently still serving, it has inspired me to make sure I do as good as I can every day in support of the ROC, U.S. Alliance, and UNC right now. And then I'm really hopeful that our younger generation can come and see the why life is so great here in Korea.
The photographer now aims to go beyond documenting war veterans to share the stories of those who protect our freedom today.
이분들 다음에도 자유와 나라를 지켰던 수많은 사람들이 있었거든요. 주한미군 베테랑부터 경찰, 소방관. 앞으로는 이분들과 마찬가지로 자유를 지키는 수호자들, Guardians of Freedom, 이런 사람들의 얘기를 더 얘기할 예정입니다.
김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Indeed, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but for some family members of our fallen heroes, putting a face to the name father is an indescribable experience. My colleague An Sung-jin files this report.
Song Young-hwan. He was only 26 years old when he died on the battlefield during the Korean War. His daughter Song Jae-suk was only 3 years old. She would go to the National Cemetery to remember him, but for her whole life, she knew little about her father and was even unable to picture how he looked.
사실 3살 때 돌아가셨는데 아버지에 대한 추억이 있었겠어요? 그래서 저를 할머니가 키우셨거든요. 그래서 할머니가 늘 하는 얘기가 너 3살 때 어려서 이제 아버지가 늘 안고 다니면서 제수 빵구 하면서 안고 다니셨대요. 그게 문득 생각나더라고요. 그래서
But after more than 70 years, she was able to see his face. While searching for an uncle who was also a soldier and had gone missing during the war, she had submitted a DNA sample. Surprisingly, she heard back from the Defense Ministry's excavation and identification team that they had matched her sample and her father's remains had been discovered.
감사함도 느끼고. 근데 또 그날 어버이날 행사 가가지고 그분을 뵈니까 아, 이렇게 기적이 있구나. 정말 그 눈물도 나고 마음도 애리고 저도 정말 이렇게 모시게 된 걸 너무 감사드리고 내가 부모님들한테 보은이라고 그럴까? 이런 걸 할 수 있는 게 이런 거 아닌가.
Song was able to receive a restored version of her father's picture through the joint efforts of the National Remains Recovery Team and the National Forensic Service, making it the first completed case of face restoration from remains from the Korean War. Using a CT scanner and 3D modeling software, the National Forensic Service reconstructs the structure of the subject's face, layering on muscles, skin, and shaping the eyes, nose, and mouth.
I had the privilege of taking part in a project that brings forgotten war heroes back to life to honor them. It gave me a deep sense of responsibility. And to help restore the image of who he was in life, we added the combat helmet and uniform that he would have worn at the time of his death.
The goal was to recreate not just a likeness, but a presence. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the Korean War, and there are still so many like Song Young-hwan that remain missing or unidentified. For many families of war veterans, it's the pain of not knowing that never fades. And through efforts like these, the return of these soldiers can become more than a historical footnote. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Kim Min-seok opened for a second day early on this Wednesday, and rival lawmakers remained poles apart over his qualifications. Correspondent Moon Hae-ryan has more.
The confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Kim Min-seok entered its second day on Wednesday, with the ruling and opposition parties continuing to clash. Even before the main questioning session began, the ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition People Power Party were once again at odds over the submission of documents from Kim, following on from yesterday's heated debate centered around the nominee's personal wealth and finances. The PPP said that not a single document had been submitted by Kim, while the DP defended him, arguing that he had followed the precedent set by previous nominees.
We haven't received any additional documents. That's why people are calling him a documentless prime minister.
During the confirmation hearing for former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, he also refused to submit certain documents, like the details and balances of his savings accounts.
Kim responded by saying that he has disclosed everything that needs to be disclosed. The hearing also saw Kim remarking on what he believes to be the core responsibility of the government.
There are lots of important things when it comes to running a country, but in the end it's about keeping people safe and making sure they can live their lives without constant worry. I think one reason South Korea stands out as a meaningful travel destination for people from other countries is because we don't have guns, and it's safe here.
Kim also addressed President Lee Jae Myung's campaign pledges such as a shorter work week of 4.5 days and raising the retirement age. He acknowledged that there are many questions that need to be asked for such pledges to be implemented, and he would consider commissioning an in-depth study by a think tank. He added that policy should be crafted with care and with close attention to potential effects. As the hearing concludes today, the two parties will consider whether to adopt the review report and on Kim's eligibility for the post. While the president cannot appoint a prime minister without the National Assembly's consent, the Democratic Party's majority in parliament means it can still push through with appointing Kim, even without the backing of the People Power Party. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae Myung held a town hall forum in the city of Gwangju today to address a host of regional matters. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
Communicating with the public has been one of the key priorities for South Korean President Lee Jae Myung. As part of such efforts, he held a town hall meeting in the southwestern city of Gwangju on Wednesday. The first half of the meeting centered on the long-stalled relocation of the Kangju Air Base. While the city seeks to move both the military air base and its civilian airport to Muan International Airport in the surrounding Jeollanam-do province, the plan has faced strong opposition from residents of Muan-gun County, largely over concerns about noise and compensation.
방법이야 여러 가지가 있을 텐데 오늘 최종 결론이 나지는 않겠지만 그 해결책의 단초를 한번 찾아보면 어떨까 싶은 생각이.
The live televised event brought together the mayors and governors of the key stakeholders, Gwangju City, Jeollanam-do province, and Muan-gun County, each presenting their positions and offering possible compromises.
The airbase relocation should be a chance to elevate Muan International Airport into a gateway hub for the southwestern region. It would be great if the president gives an order to form a joint team, including Muan-gun County, Gwangju City, the Finance and Defense Ministries, to meet and reach a conclusion.
If the project is led by the central government and comes with groundbreaking incentives that outweigh the costs, I would have a basis to persuade our residents.
The president laid out his plan after hearing from both sides.
저는 이제 국가 단위에서 제가 책임을 지는 게 맞다고 생각해요. 그래서 정부에서 이걸 주관을 좀 하도록 하겠습니다. 그 대통령실에서 TF팀을 만들고요. 만들고 최대한 빨리 속도 있게 실제 조사도 좀 하고 이 주민들도 좀 참여시키든지 외부 전문가도 좀 하고 해가지고 TF팀을 만들도록 하시고요.
Before the town hall, President Lee visited the Sorokdo National Hospital for Hansen's disease patients, becoming the first South Korean president to do so. This was a promise made by First Lady Kim Hae-kyung, who had visited the island during the campaigning period. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
The month of April recorded yet another tangible rise in the birth of babies here in South Korea. Our Shin Se-byul covers the latest findings.
South Korea recorded its sharpest April increase in birth in 34 years. Data from Statistics Korea released on Wednesday show that 20,717 babies were born in April 2025, up 8.7% from a year earlier, marking the highest year-on-year increase for April since 1991. With this, the number of newborns has seen on-month increases for 10 consecutive months since July last year. This pushed the total fertility rate to 0.79, up 0.06 points on year. It also marks 4 straight months of gains in the average number of children a woman is expected to have. Marriage figures also stayed on an upward trend. A total of 18,923 couples got married in April, up 4.9% from the previous year. This marks the 13th consecutive month of growth, as well as the steepest April rise in 6 years. Divorces, meanwhile, fell by 5.2% over the same period. One expert, however, cautioned that the recent uptick may be temporary, driven more by demographic timing than by any meaningful change in social or economic conditions.
There are 3 key factors behind the trend: delayed marriages and childbirths due to the pandemic, and a large cohort currently in their prime age for marriage and childbirth. But this doesn't signal a fundamental shift in social conditions.
To see lasting change, the expert stressed the need to address broader challenges, including housing, education, and job stability. Meanwhile, 28,785 deaths were reported in April, up 0.8% from a year earlier. As a result, the population shrank by 8,068, marking the 66th consecutive month of natural decline. 신세벽, Arirang News.
On the defense front, South Korea has successfully conducted a safety separation flight test of its homegrown long-range air-to-surface guided missile. According to the state-run procurement agency, the test was conducted on Monday and comes as part of its plan to develop missiles for the KF-21 fighter jets for precision strikes on enemy targets. Now, more tests are scheduled to be carried out in the future before simulations involving a KF-21 prototype starting in the year 2027. In other news, Korea's mandatory military service break is no longer considered a career setback for K-pop idols. Our Park Gun-woo tells us why.
Welcome back. Fans say it with sincerity after a long wait for their favorite K-pop idols to finish their military service. Those two words have never felt more powerful than this June, the month when BTS finally became whole again, with Suga being the last member to officially complete his military duty.
The military service is very demanding, so they need to take a little break, but we're most looking forward to, their comeback, their new potential concepts, their new music. We're just happy that they're back together.
Yeah.
Fans from around the world have been preparing for this moment, some even from the year before. On this day, it was easy to find global fans from regions, including Southeast Asia and North and South America, celebrating the return of their favorite stars. That was especially visible at fan cafes, where fans transform regular cafes into customized spaces for special events like being discharged from the military. At first glance, this may look like an ordinary cafe, but take a closer look, and you'll find all kinds of decorations celebrating the discharge of BTS members from the military. From photo displays, to fan letters, and even custom-made merchandise. There was a time when military service meant 2 years of silence with less interaction with fans, but now fans have found ways to stay connected. Fans say they managed to wait, thanks ironically to the abundance of content released when the artists were away.
They were prepared before they went into the military. At least they had some content for all of the army to consume while they were away. So I'm sure they really thought of us.
One expert says the military service break used to be seen as a major obstacle to idol careers, but not anymore.
Unlike now, in the past, idol groups typically lasted only a few years, and very few made it past 7. That meant going to the military during their peak often ended their career in fandom. But K-pop's global expansion is also another factor, as international fans tend to stay loyal, regardless of age, giving artists greater longevity.
He added that in the case of BTS, the group's decision to enlist one by one was a smart strategy, helping maintain the group's brand even while some members were away. As public perception toward military service breaks has shifted, the time away is no longer seen as a full stop, but merely a comma before a brand new chapter begins. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. A Russian missile strike on Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region has killed at least 26 civilians and injured hundreds in one of the most devastating attacks this week. On Tuesday around midday local time, a Russian ballistic missile attack hit the city of Dnipro and surrounding areas, including the town of Samar. The strike struck a passenger train, schools, kindergartens, a hospital, and other civilian infrastructure. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, attending the NATO Summit in The Hague, condemned the attack as a message of terror and rejection of peace. He urged Western allies to impose tougher sanctions on Russia and supply additional military aid to Ukraine. Russian drones and missiles have struck multiple regions this week, leaving a high civilian toll across Ukraine. In Greece, a state of emergency remains in effect on the island of Chios, where wildfires have been burning for the past 3 days. Hundreds of firefighters have been deployed to contain the blazes before they reach villages and vital farmland. More than 400 firefighters, supported by 14 helicopters, 2 water-dropping planes, and more than 80 vehicles are fighting multiple fire fronts as strong winds fan the blazes. Forests, olive groves, and some farmland, including areas known for producing Chios's famous mastia resin, have been devastated. Authorities have evacuated hundreds of residents from more than 20 villages. Greece's Minister for Climate Crisis and Civil Protection confirmed that investigators are looking into the possibility of arson after simultaneous outbreaks in unconnected locations. Eastern parts of the United States are experiencing an intense heat dome effect, characterized by oppressive heat and high humidity across New York and its surrounding area. On Tuesday, New York City reached 38 degrees Celsius at JFK Airport for the first time since 2013, as extreme heat warnings covered the entire metropolitan area through 8 p.m., when it was downgraded to heat advisories through Wednesday evening. Experts predict that the heat dome will persist through midweek. Residents have been advised to stay hydrated and limit outdoor exposure during the late morning and afternoon hours. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Rain has been continuing on and off in most parts of the country today. The rain will mostly stop tonight, but some parts of Gangwon-do province and Chungcheongbuk-do province will have rain until tomorrow morning. As for the amount of rainfall, about 5 to 20 millimeters of rain is expected in Gyeonggi-do province, Gangwon-do province, northern parts of Chungcheongbuk-do province and Gyeongsangbuk-do province, and around 5 to 10 millimeters in other parts of the country, including Seoul. Tomorrow and Friday, as the monsoon rain takes a break, daytime temperatures will rise back to around 30 degrees Celsius, mainly in inland areas. Tomorrow morning will stay warm at around 19 to 22 degrees all over the country. Highs will move up to 28 degrees in Seoul, 27 degrees in Daejeon and Busan. More rain will begin in the Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongnam-do province on Friday and spread nationwide on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.